November 1988, my 15th birthday, and as a special treat I was allowed to rent two films at the same time. Two at once. I went to the video store 3 weeks before to reserve them. Even the guy at the counter couldn't believe it. You want them both together? I said no, it's my birthday. By the way, if I've already lost you with the term video store and the concept of reserving a film 3 weeks in advance of wanting to watch it, buckle up youngster, it is only going to get more complicated for you. Now these were films I'd been absolutely desperate to see since they'd been released at the cinema 2 years earlier. Why did I not watch them at the cinema? Well, because my parents allowed me and my brother one cinema trip a decade, and we used that up in 1983. So my birthday came and went. The tapes went back to the store, rewound obviously, and I was left with three things I had to achieve in life based on what I just watched. Firstly, from Top Gun, I wanted to be a naval aviator.
That's right, a naval aviator.
And bizarrely at this point, it's the one I've actually come closest to achieving. Secondly, also from Top Gun, I wanted to own and ride that bike. And that is what this video is all about, because the third objective, I've got to be honest with you, by the time I was 16, I realised I was never going to find the Crocodile Dundee waistcoat, and it wouldn't have suited me anyway. If you are a channel regular and here for the health and fitness motivation, hang in there. I am going to spin that in somehow at some point. If you're new and here for the motorbike stuff, thinking, why is this guy just talking? That is how we do things here. Welcome. Right, it is on the drive. I picked it up last night. I run the camera over it. I'm going to show you that in a minute because it is a thing of absolute pure beauty. I'm then going to take it out for its first ride and see whether a goal, almost 35 years in the making, is as sweet to achieve as I'm hoping it will be. But first, let me take you through this goal's evolution, starting from that birthday way back in '88, sandwiched between Mick Dundee and the opening of presents, which did not include Gutted. And I'm taking you through this because I think it might say something about goal setting, or rather goal achieving, that might have implications for just about anything you want to do. Lose weight, get in shape, whatever. So after that birthday, all of the next year, 1989, I am focused on becoming a fighter pilot and getting that bike. I'm working every hour available after school as a lifeguard. Saving up whatever I can. Spring of 1990, 6 months before I turned 17, when I'll be old enough to get my first motorbike, I figured it would then be a good idea to get a bike straight away and spend all summer riding it around my parents' garden so that come my 17th birthday, I'll be an expert at avoiding apple trees and rose bushes. So that was the plan. So I popped down to Motorcycle City on the Oxford Road. Google Maps indicates it's aged worse than me. And I wander around inside, waiting for a salesman that I can talk to about spending my hard-earned lifeguard money. And while I'm doing so, I'm looking at the bikes they have there for sale. The cool bikes, the ones that are too big, too expensive, too powerful for me at that time. And all the latest stuff is there. And I notice right at the end of a line of bikes, a used Kawasaki. And I think, oh my God, that is it. I look over it, it is a mint perfect 1984 GPZ 900R, the bike that defined modern sports bikes, a legend. And I think one day I'm having that. I don't care, it's 6 years old, getting a bit past its prime now, no longer quite the state-of-the-art beast it had been at launch. A legend doesn't stop being a legend. I want it. Hanging off the grip is a little cardboard label that all the used bikes had the bike details scribbled on one side, on the other side had the price written down. I have a look. I think, how many years have I got to be pulling idiots off the bottom of a swimming pool to pay for this thing? All that is written on the label is Top Gun. I flip it over, nothing on the other side, nothing needed to be. Salesman comes over, sells me a Yamaha DT125R, and that was the last time I was stood that close to a GPZ 900. Anyway, end of 1990, I turned 17, was riding a bike around my parents' garden for 6 months, good preparation for getting my license. No, took me 2 goes. Failed the first time because I rode out of the test centre through the entrance only gate. Failed before I got on the road. And did I destroy their garden over those 6 months? Yes, I did. But remember, karma. However, all thoughts of what big bike I'd be riding in the future had gone because I am now focused on joining the Navy to fly fast jets. I'd been to the recruitment office. They told me to go get my A-levels, and then there'd be some sort of sponsorship, go to university type thing. I forget the details. It was a long time ago. But it was all systems go. They even sent me on a couple of courses. I did some character and leadership assessment thing, which involved a week in the woods, staying somewhere, being shouted at by scary people, and then taught how to read a map, I think, and be shouted at. It was less Top Gun, more Full Metal Jacket.
What the fuck is that?
But I was on the right path. I even had a couple of flying lessons. And then, just before the end of the year, my recollection of how this information got to me is very, very foggy. But basically, I was told that my thighs were too long. I can remember sitting in my parents' dining room measuring from my hip to my knee just to double check what it was I was being told, which was basically that I was now too tall to ever fly a jet. If I ejected, I would lose my kneecaps. Apparently anybody over 6'3" is pushing it. At 17, I'd just gone past that point. But it made no sense because Tim Robbins is 6'4" and he sat behind Maverick just fine.
Excuse me, something I should know about?
But Tim Robbins argument didn't fly with the Navy, as it were, and that was it. I was told I could fly helicopters, maybe. I don't know if I'd seen Wings of the Apache at that point, or maybe it was the following year. Either way, I didn't want to fly helicopters, and even Nick Cage could not have convinced me to. And so that was it. No crocodile skin waistcoat, and now no naval aviator. So I quit school immediately, walked out with no exams, went full-time as a lifeguard, and a year later had saved up enough to upgrade that little Yamaha. The bike Goal was now the only one left. But a GPZ 900R was staggeringly expensive to insure, so I went for the next best thing. If I couldn't have Pete Mitchell's bike, I'd have Topper Harley's. The bad news was the Honda Transalp that Charlie Sheen rode in Hot Shots was only slightly less expensive to insure than the Kawasaki. The good news was that Yamaha was doing some sort of deal type thing on free insurance for a Super 10 750, and that's close enough. Why am I wearing a Honda CBR jacket and a John Kaczynski replica helmet? I have no idea. I'm a teenage moron. It was the least of the stupid decisions I was making around that time. But was the big Yamaha a good bike? No, it was horrible. Actually, it got stolen pretty quickly, which is a good thing. I then went and bought a Vauxhall Cavalier and gave up on motorbikes altogether. Right, goal setting. If you do follow this channel, you might know I'm not a huge fan of chasing after a specific goal to the detriment of all else, but rather I simply like adopting good habits designed to probably lead to that same goal, whatever it might be. But even if they do not, so what? Good habits will often yield other, perhaps unforeseen benefits anyway. That in itself is an achievement, and one that is probably of greater value than some singular target to be hit and then forgotten about. But I haven't always been like that. For example, in 1999, I'd long since stopped being a lifeguard, and I've been working in financial services for long enough that I have a bit of money. A guy I worked with did motorbike track days, and it became a goal of mine to ride crazy fast on a track. Why? No idea. Probably because at this stage I was a good few years into my physical descent into unfit obesity, and work aside, had not been particularly good at anything for a long time. I just became fixated on this idea of going to racetracks and being very, very good at riding around them. So I went out and I bought my first fast bike. A brand new, only been out a year then, Yamaha R1. Reminded myself how to ride it again, and within a couple of weeks was on a racetrack. I then spent 2.5 years throwing stupid amounts of money and time at track days, almost weekly during the summer, all my spare time. By then I had my first kid, all her spare time, and I did, as you'd expect, get faster and faster, spending so much time on it, but never really enjoyed it. In the end, I can remember coming back one day from a track where I had not set a better time than when I'd been around that particular track before, and just driving back in the car, bike on a trailer behind me, just annoyed at the money I'd spent, the time off work, the time getting the bike ready. I was pretty good. A track day is not racing, so I wasn't racing good, but amongst track day riders at the time, I was in the fast group, I was above average. But because I was chasing being the best, fixated on results, not the journey, I wasn't enjoying it. I sold the bike, I didn't ride again for years. That fixation on goal setting and achieving to a seriously above average level, I'm sure it works for some. I mean, obviously it does work for some because those are the people that go on to become the best in whatever it is that they're doing. But for every one person who is the best, there is everybody else below them who isn't. I was there, disappointed that I wasn't as good as I thought I should be, and unable to see any positives. Now contrast that with how I've tried to live my life since turning 40, where I do have goals and objectives. I have things I'd like to try and achieve, but they're flexible and changeable, just like life. If better things come along, they can take their place. And if something I want just doesn't happen, it's no big deal, because I have good habits, things that I try and tick off my to-do list every single day. Things that are not particularly hard to achieve in themselves, but when done consistently for a reasonable duration of time, add up to all sorts of things becoming possible as a result of those good foundations. Some of those things may be the goals and the objectives that I do have in place, but some of them might be things I could not even have considered doing as a target, but suddenly find myself achieving anyway. For example, by far the most fun I've ever had on a motorcycle was riding around Africa, first on my own and then going back with Jenna. That first trip wasn't a goal or an objective or a target. Jen was just going off to Peru with a girlfriend of hers to do a trip they'd planned since they were kids, and I was left with nothing to do. So despite not having sat on a bike at that point in 15 years, in 2016, because of the way I'd been going about things, good habits, focusing on the positives in small daily achievements, that led me to being in a place where my health, my fitness, my finances, my family life all allowed me, with about a month's notice, to take a 2-day learn to ride an adventure bike course and then fly to Namibia, hire a bike and ride solo around the desert for a month. And when I got back, Jen said, "That sounds like such good fun." She'd take her motorcycle license, and we then went back the following year to do it together. It would never have even occurred to me to set those trips as goals or objectives before they just happened. And had I done so, I would probably have got bogged down and fixated on how well I could have done them. Instead, I simply had good habits in place that allowed me to just go and achieve cool things. Were we the best adventure motorcyclists riding around Africa? No, are you kidding? We were lucky to get out alive. Jen had about an hour's riding under her belt between passing her test and hitting the desert. We were absolutely insane to even be there. But I rate what we achieved on those trips higher than anything I ever did on a racetrack. And so do a couple of years ago. Top Gun 2 is supposed to be due out any second as long as there's no global pandemic that gets in the way. And it prompts me to start looking at whether you can even get a GPZ 900R anymore. And there's a few ropey looking ones in the classified ads, but what am I going to do with it? Where am I going to put it? Nothing clicks. Getting one never escalates beyond the silly dream of some 16-year-old kid. Until a month or so ago. Top Gun Maverick has a release date. Jen and I are sat on the sofa. One evening she's on her phone, she's booking tickets to go see the movie at a minute past midnight on the day it gets released. And I get the urge to scroll through Facebook Marketplace, just for fun. And there it is. The first thing that comes up, a completely rebuilt from the ground up, everything on it looking like it did in 1984, 900R. The following day, we drive 3 hours to see it. I buy it immediately.
Take me back to a place where I felt at home. Take me back to a day when we weren't alone. Take me back to an age when the world felt small. Way back before we blew it all. Take me back to a place where I felt at home. Take me back to a day when we weren't alone. Take me back to an age when the world felt small. Way back before we blew it all.
The classic bike restoration place that I've had it in storage for the last few years, spent the last few weeks getting it ready to run again, and I picked it up yesterday. And it is, for a 38-year-old motorcycle, perfect. It wasn't always that way. The bike has come with a bunch of photographs showing its transformation to its current condition, and a bit like myself, in the early 2000s, it looked like it needed scrapping. But a large amount of time and money has been thrown at it, and it is now pretty much like it would have been in the showroom back in '84. Okay? Let's go have a ride.
Take me back to a place where I felt at home. Take me back to a day when we weren't alone. Take me back to an age when the world felt small. Way back before we blew it all. Take me back to a place where I felt at home. Take me back to a day when we weren't alone. Take me back to an age when the world felt small. Way back before we blew it all. Too many things going on, I can't keep track track of them all. From people dropping a bomb to people putting up walls. I feel like life is on hold, perception stuck in a vault. I know that time can heal all, but how much time till we fall? It's awfully chilly outside when there's no shelter to hide. When everything is a lie, you'll find that out in some time. But when the things on your mind are all considered a crime, communication aside, we'll all just fight till we die. Is this an argument or just the start of it? Either way, I don't wanna be a part of it. Can I just get some space? I don't have the heart for this. I can't be picking up the pieces, fixing scars from this. Is this an argument or just the start of it? I wanna drive away so I can be so far from it.
I am back from the ride, and I can tell you what it was like. It was like riding an almost 40-year-old motorbike, which is fine. In 1984, it was the best sports bike you could get. Today, judging it purely as a motorcycle, I mean, it's nowhere near as fast or agile as even my R1 was, and that's now over 20 years ago. The brakes, for example, just play a sort of supporting role in getting you to stop. I had to use lots of downshifting through the gears just to slow it down properly. I mean, it's really comfortable, I suppose. Even at 6.6, I felt like I could just sit on it all day. But yeah, nothing mind-blowing, not in 2022 anyway. Luckily, it is way more than just a motorbike. I was riding along and I could just vividly remember that day in Motorcycle City thinking to myself, I'm going to have one of these. It felt like it was yesterday, but it also felt like it was decades ago at the same time. It was like the bike just allowed me to see that whole expanse of time from then to now all at once. It was like my life flashing before my eyes without the normal requirement of impending death. It was just an awful lot of fun. I was just riding along, just grinning the whole time and hoping nothing fell off it, mostly me. And so what happens to it now? The two questions that I've been asked quite a bit on social media from the people that knew I was getting it are this: am I going to paint it Top Gun colours? And am I going to ride it and use it regularly? So the bike in Top Gun is not standard Kawasaki colours for that bike in an 84 or 85 model, which was the model they used for the film, an 85. Basically, Kawasaki wouldn't give Paramount Studios a couple of the bikes for free, so they took them and then removed the Kawasaki name and logos off of them and had them resprayed. Given what the film did for sales of the bike, I imagine that somebody at Kawasaki's media and marketing department never worked in the motorcycle industry ever again. But no, it is not getting altered or resprayed. There are Top Gun replicas out there. This is not going to be one of those. It's not going to get ridden either regularly. In fact, it's going to go here. It's literally just going to go and sit right here. I don't need to ride it. I'm not a huge fan of riding on UK roads. If I was going to do that, I'd have a bike that had great new modern brakes and stopped when I wanted it to. No, the thing is just going to sit there and act as a reminder, really. Remind me that goals are great, wanting stuff is of value, but sometimes it's just about kind of getting your head down, ticking off the basics, establish good habits that move you forward a small amount every day, making sure where you can, you're a bit better tomorrow at something, anything, than you were previously. And then goals you do have will be more achievable. Goals you didn't even know you had might just get achieved anyway. And goals you'd forgotten about for 35 years, sometimes they get ticked off the list too. So that is it. There's some shelving and some bits and pieces to go up in here first, but other than that, the bike just needs a quick clean and wax, and it is then ready to sit right there. We'll get run every few months just to keep it ticking over, but other than that, it needs nothing else doing to it. It is perfect, as I always thought it would be. Almost perfect, in fact, almost.
Take me back to a place where I felt at home. Take me back to a day when we weren't alone. Take me back to an age when the world felt small. Way back before we blew it all. Take me back to a place where